Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Ghost Train. I am your host, Marcus Diaz. With me is James Castina.
Evening,
As always,
guys.
he's got some sort of technical problems, and this time it's a webcam issue. So,
Hey,
yeah,
at least I made it here, though, right? I mean, that's all that matters. You can hear my beautiful, sexy voice.
I wouldn't go that far, but yeah, at least you're here, and that's all that matters. Um, so tonight's gonna be a little bit of a different show. I think James and I were pretty busy this week. We really didn't have time to set up a normal talk show like we normally do with topics and whatnot and guests. So we're just going to do something that a lot of fans have been asking about for us to do again. That's a setup analysis show. For those of you that don't know, setup analysis show is basically what we do is we go into the past. We get certain days that were pretty sizable, and we kind of go back and recreate them through all the different products and all the different forecasting tools we have. Today's topic for setup analysis is March. Some of the biggest March setups we've had. I didn't want to do March 2nd, 2012, just simply because Rich Thompson just went over that in his tornado forecasting class. So I felt that was a little redundant to do that. So the days we picked today, the very famous March 18th, 1925 day, that is very famous because it is the Tri-State Tornado Day. Large destructive tornado, over 200-mile damage path on the longest streak in. I mean, we'll talk about how crazy that day was in the forecasting standpoint. Also, we have a day that not has not really been talked about too much. At least I don't hear a lot of rumble about it, and it's a very significant day because it had a very odd supercell, and that would be March 12th, 2006. That day featured a supercell that traveled 6 states, started in Oklahoma, and ended up in Lake Huron, east of Michigan. So that storm had quite a life, and we're going to kind of go over that too. Also, we are going to be talking about a very famous setup in terms of chasing territory and how big it was, and that's March 28, 2007. Of course, that was a big, big tornado outbreak. 81 tornadoes confirmed from, I believe, South Dakota all the way down through the Texas and Texas Panhandle in that area. So lots of good days we're going to talk about. But first, James and I went on our first chase of the year
Hell yeah, we did.
on Thursday. We didn't see very much, but we actually got out there. So, James, how did it feel to be out there, dude?
Felt damn good. I mean, you kind of forget what it's like to be in a car full of three other dudes, really stick you out. And, first towers go up, it's an amazing feeling, especially when you realize you haven't
You,
completely borked your forecast. Uh,
you feel that every week. You feel a car full of dudes. That's like every day for you, man.
I know, man. I get those soup kitchens going in a tiny Prius. It's just a fun time for everybody. Uh,
Soup kitchen.
so it was good to be out again. I'm kind of glad that it wasn't a complete like stormless piece of crap undercut bust. So that was pretty good.
Yeah, that's kind of what a lot of people were really worried about, and that is the fact that we had a cold front kind of in play, and this was a cold front that was going to crash through the area, kind of kill the party, and sure enough, it did. It did exactly what it wanted to do, and I mean, I really didn't expect much from chasing Thursday, March 19th. Um, I was expecting to hopefully at least get one supercell that actually showed supercell characteristics and actually looked legitimate instead of some crappy early season stuff. Come on, Dusty, participate here. I know Dusty's over here like falling on me right now,
He wants
but
you.
no, he wants me. But yeah, so it kind of went through my expectations. I didn't expect much more than what I got, which I got on two different storms. One of them, the first one was near Lake Kemp, Texas, and then once that one decided, or once the cold front caught up to that one, killed it. We drove south to Windthorst, got on that storm. Looked kind of okay on the backside of it. We were kind of playing catch up, but then by the time we got due west of it, looked like crap, and the cold front was already coming in, so we kind of called it a day after that. So, I mean, did it live up to your expectations, James, at least, or?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely what I expected. Kind of marginal brief supercell structures. If you kind of watch the radar that day, most of the storms never quite got going in lower levels. I mean, those weak low level winds up near the front kind of did them in. They had pretty high bases for most of the day. But I mean, it was pretty cool. I mean, that storm near Windthorst did have some, you know, weekly supercellular characteristics. I mean, that RFD that came in was, I mean, it was a strong RFD. It was a wet, cold RFD. So it felt good to be out there though. Again, I can't complain.
Yep, exactly true. Now before we dive into these old setups, James and I thought it'd be good to talk about the upcoming week and forecasting. I think this is kind of how it's going to work from now on. Maybe not so much on the setup analysis show, maybe, I don't know. But we're definitely going to start talking about the week setups or the week's worth of setups coming up. And sure enough, we are here towards the last week of March, and we're finally getting some activity on the plains. We're finally getting some good moisture up here, and we're getting some decent energy. The Hudson Bay trough is not as strong and prevalent. It's still kind of up there, but it's not as bad. So James, between tomorrow, Tuesday, and Wednesday, all look like they all have a chance at doing something. We've gone tornado-less here in the month of March, which is unheard of for the most part. But here we are with 3 days that could possibly do it. Tomorrow's kind of a hit and miss day. The cap's going to be an issue. And then you got Tuesday and Wednesday, which they have issues, but I don't know. What do you think? Let's talk about what we got. Let's talk about tomorrow first because this is kind of an interesting day. And I'll go ahead and let you talk about tomorrow and kind of what you think about tomorrow.
Yeah, sure thing. I'm going to pull up a screen share here real quick, and I'm over on, just pull up some models on COD. So this is just a 12Z run of the NAM this morning, switch to the South Plains. So tomorrow really kind of falls under, it's one of those days where if you're not looking or if you're not close and you haven't been, you got tunnel vision for the next 2 days, you'll completely miss it. So heading into tomorrow, you start to get some weak troughing off to the west ahead of the main trough that's going to come through on Tuesday. Kind of weaker upper level winds throughout most of the day, but here it kind of kicks in towards the evening. That first kind of perturbation right here swings through the panhandles in eastern New Mexico. But the problem with tomorrow is kind of twofold. I mean, you have the biggest thing is going to be moisture problem. I mean, right now, this is 6Z right here, and you've got 60s just making their way up to around San Antonio per the NAM, and then kind of slowly makes it up and by 0Z. I think that's maybe mid to upper 50s right here. So moisture, and then definitely capping concerns. From what I remember, really, really warm low levels. I mean, it warms up pretty fast up there. I mean, you can see that kind of digging in right here on the edge of that moisture gradient. But I mean, everything else is kind of there. The shear looks, pretty decent if you can get a storm to go up in that kind of environment. Just looking at it, the storm is going to be pretty isolated if something does actually manage to go. But that's kind of the big thing here, is that this is a extraordinarily conditional risk for supercells. And I mean, if one does go up, I wouldn't be surprised to see 2 or 3 tornado reports up there tomorrow.
Now, there's kind of a double target for tomorrow, and it's kind of like the classic issue of any sort of plains day. You kind of have that triple point warm front kind of deal up in near Dodge City, which, I mean, there's really not much of a temperature gradient, but you can see the wind shift lines right around Dodge City. That could serve as as sort of a good boundary for storms. And then, of course, further down the dry line here in western Oklahoma, that's always kind of an option too. But yeah, there's problems with it. The capping's not that great. There's not a whole lot of instability, even though 1500, on the surface base looks good, and there's little shades of 2 grand there in northwest Oklahoma. If you jump over there, 0Z. I mean, there's a sliver of 1500. And it's a very, very narrow window of instability. So what you have to hope for is something pops up further west, like out here in the eastern panhandle, and just kind of starts building its way and survives and stays surface based for the most part. But go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say the plus side, like I said, though. I mean, the winds are pretty damn good for this time of year. I mean, it's definitely a lot better than what you'd expect. In the kind of end of March here. I think it's a 35, 40 knots.
We lucked out on the 850s, or actually due south, which is important in this part of the country. I know people talk about southwesterly 850s don't matter, except for this area, because it does. So southerly 850s look great. Of course, you got your low kind of centered further north, so that's why you get that nice southerly 850 jet. And of course, the 500s look good. The 250s, the anvil layer, are actually very strong. They're nosing right through that area. Um, well, I wouldn't say very strong, but you got 90 knots. It looks like.
Yeah, decently strong. Actually, yeah, this is 90 knots right here. It's kind of pushing in ahead of that main trough. The big thing, though, just looking at the chart that I didn't notice earlier, right here across the panhandle, you have due westerly 850s and then kind of southwest, kind of perpendicular almost to the dry line, which kind of might, add to the moisture problems for tomorrow. If a storm does go up, it'll be ingesting a lot of dry air if it's right on that boundary.
Mm-hmm.
But still, I would, if I lived, in Norman or up in Wichita, Dodge City, I would definitely take that gamble tomorrow if I had the time.
Definitely, and of course, like we said, this isn't the only setup we got coming up. So, but yeah, if you live in those general areas, kind of that, Amarillo, Norman, Wichita, Dodge City area, definitely take a gamble on tomorrow. You might get surprised. You might be surprised. You might actually see something if the storm goes. Now, the 4 kilometer NAM, I believe, which you can't put too much faith in the. We'll go to the. I think go to the 18G because this will probably tell the story. Now, the precip on this, it's not much of the best precip model. It's not, don't put your faith in precip models. But if you jump over there to just go to 0Z, maybe. See, right there. You got a little storm in Eastern Panhandle. Now, the problem is that's right on the dry line like we were talking about. So there's probably a good chance that storm's not going to survive too long. But if it just fires off the dry line, goes a little bit east, we could be looking at a nice little LP supercell. You can see it survives for a little while through the evening. I don't expect it to be surface-based after dark, though. So there it is. There's one chance of something happening tomorrow. Like I said, take it. If you're in that area, take the drive. I mean, for me, I'm going to probably drive up, sit around Canadian. If I don't see anything, I'll probably go have some dinner in Canadian and call it a day. But so there's one shot. That's tomorrow. That's the first chance we have. I guess I should say the second chance is for this March that we can break that tornado-less record. Now, Tuesday is kind of a very strange day. I really didn't like the setup. Now, a lot of people did kind of talk about Tuesday. I mean, it's kind of like this frontal boundary that's kind of, southwest northeast orientation. I don't really like that. You got the warm front in Missouri and southern Illinois. I like that, but of course that's out of my range.
Yep.
The moisture is actually pretty decent in the southern part of the setup on Tuesday. You got 60 dew points for the most part. There it is right there from southeast Kansas, southwest Missouri, and then you got mid-60s down here near the Red River down in DFW. The good thing about this is that boundary is kind of stuck there. It's pretty much a dry line. I wouldn't call it a cold front because there's really not much cold air behind it.
Yeah, cold front's going to be, I think, back in here. The dry line's still kind of right in there.
Yeah. So, and I believe the 500s, this is where that you get a nice little strong ejection of the 500s right there, nosing into southeast Kansas, western Missouri. Not a bad terrain to chase in. It's not the best. I've chased out there before. But, I mean, you got that beautiful difluent flow right there. I mean, you got, some of that's going almost due easterly. The others are due westerly, and others coming from southwesterly. You get that vacuum in there, and that helps, create some extra lift. And, I mean, the 250s, though, I mean, not as good as it was the day before, but, that can still get the job done. For sure.
Yeah, the big thing about Tuesday, too, is these things are going to be rocketing. I mean, even off the dry line, you have really, really strong steering winds. And the good thing is if you can get a play up here close to that surface low, around 21Z, definitely like right along here where it's a little bit cooler up here, you'll definitely you might have a chance at maybe a very brief storm. But the issue is the shear profiles for this day they're definitely
not the greatest.
Yeah, it's gonna be probably linear. I mean, it's almost completely uniform.
Okay.
throughout. Yeah,
Yeah, I
it's
mean, a lot of unidirectional flow. Like I said, the warm front's probably going to be the best play just because you get that you get that extra backing there right along the front. So, what is that? I-70?
yeah, it's
That's
I 70,
I-70.
which is on either side. It's not too bad, but man, once you get like right here, right up here, it turns into a
Hmm.
real mess.
Yeah, that's kind of a gamble for you guys to take. Dan Robinson talks about these days where he doesn't want to stray too far from St. Louis, and the warm front's cutting right through St. Louis, so that might be a shot for him.
Yeah, definitely.
So we got that day covered. And then Wednesday now, this is the day you were telling me that you might want to chase this day.
Yep, and honestly, right, the 12Z may look really, really bad. I mean, that's 21Z right there. I mean, you have your 1004 millibar low just chilling right here and really kind of broad area. Surface trough up here, just ahead of the front. And then the big thing, too, is the NAM has been advertising, I think, pretty high mixed layer K values for this day that, honestly, I'm not sure if I'd even believe.
Believe it?
Yeah, like, I think it had,
3,500, wasn't it?
yeah, it was, yeah, like, there's no way.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no way that's correct. Just based off of how it's been looking the past, 4 or 5 runs before this, that looks completely, kind of
There's something there.
outlandish.
Maybe it's almost like there's some bad data in that area or on that run. Um, Definitely possibility. I mean, you do have some warm temperatures in the lower 80s over what 60, 65 dews.
Yep.
I mean, if it's May, I could totally believe that, but March, it's
And
kind of far fetched. But
and the other big issue is with this day is the cold front is literally right here. It's going to come probably, crashing down pretty fast when it's 21Z, and then it kind of slowly advances towards Oklahoma City in the next 3 hours. You still have your surface low right here and your dry line down through here, but this is definitely going to be the area right here if this setup continues to look like it does. Southern Oklahoma, kind of down between Purcell, down to the Red River maybe, across to, roughly Ada. And unfortunately, once you start getting past like Sulphur and off I-35, you start having worse roads, a little bit more vegetation.
yeah,
So, but everything else for this day looks, I'd definitely chase this. I mean, this is about the only bad thing for this day that's got going on. I mean,
again though, this southwesterly 850s out here isn't as much of a killer as it is further west when you have to worry about desert air getting or mixing out that dry line. So definitely along I-40 on Wednesday, probably good shot. I know there was some pretty strong signals on the not 4 kilometer, but on the NAM for precip on that day. So
yeah, I actually haven't looked at that. I'll pull it up here real quick just to take a look at it. We got convective precip.
just to satisfy your hunger there, huh?
Yeah.
Well, well, maybe not as good as I thought, but I mean, Oklahoma City. Here
Yeah,
we go
here we
again,
go.
right?
And honestly, the way this is going, with my luck, it'll end up just being probably, a big old line,
What's gonna
multi-cell
happen?
line.
What's gonna happen is all you guys in Norman, you're gonna be like, oh man, you know what? Well, we don't want to chase it in Oklahoma City area. Let's go down, south or whatever, and on the Red River, and then it's gonna produce in Oklahoma City because y'all aren't even there. So that
Um,
happens every time.
oh, you have no idea how salty I would be. It would be bad.
Oh, it's bound to happen. I mean, what you ought to do is tell everyone to go down south, and then just sit and relax in your apartment or whatever in Norman, and just let it come to you, because that seems to be the best way to chase storms in Norman. Just let them happen in your backyard.
Yeah, no kidding. And honestly, I can never figure out why COD does this. But, I mean, relatively high 0 to 3 kilometer helicity values down here on the Red River. I think that's 250, or 200, 250, right down there.
Mhm.
Most unstable. Just kind
Which
of.
is pretty good. I mean, yeah,
I
and the
mean,
most unstable, that's really good too.
it's advertised in pretty high values, which that'll just kind of have to be a thing you wait and see too,
Well,
because it's still a ways out.
even if you just give, even if 2,000 on the most unstable is realized, I mean that's pretty substantial for this early season stuff. And then the amount of shear you have in the atmosphere, you're kind of bound to get some pretty good storms. The question is are they going to be elongated because of that low level shear is not, out of the due south? I mean, the 925s right there look pretty good down south, and um, the 700s don't look too bad either. I mean, it looks like a pretty decent day if you're pretty much in DFW, Oklahoma City, maybe Wichita if you want to make the drive south a little bit. Those areas looked pretty good in terms of there you got some pretty good warm air advection there on that southeast quadrant of Oklahoma too.
Yeah, the other big thing I just kind of noticed too, looking at this, there might be a small inversion there, kind of between basically throughout the boundary layer and up to about basically just like right off the deck, 0 to 1. Might be kind of a little inversion there, which might throw another wrench into things there, because that could really mess things up, even if storms manage somehow to get going and be somewhat semi-discreet.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Between now and Wednesday, that's plenty of time for the NAM to totally shit the bed.
Yeah, right.
That's kind of what it's good at. It gives you all these falsified hope and all these lies, and then probably, usually like the night before or the day of, it just kind of craps itself. So, some good, not much good in terms of vorticity lobes kind of circling the area, which a lot of the good vorticity is further west and north of the setup. So it's kind of a marginal chase. But you know what? We were talking about this, James. We were talking about this earlier. This could very well at least kill the tornado-less streak of March. Possible, very possible, between, like I said, any of these days coming up.
Yeah.
Now, I was just going to say, I encourage you guys to take advantage of this, because if you see what the hell this cold front's going to do to this moisture after this, man,
yeah,
you're about to watch all this moisture take a nice Caribbean vacation. I was so bummed out when I saw that. If you go like almost all the way, okay, right there's there's the weekend. Look at all the moisture. It's like dry in Florida. Can you believe that? Barely any 62 points coming up, and there they come up, sneaking up in Texas. But it's going to be in probably at least another week before we even. Well, I know it's going to be another week before we see another decent setup, possibly, because that moisture is going to be scoured way south, and I know a lot of people hate that, but that's a very common thing in the early season. It happens, guys. That's just the way it is. The further south you go, maybe the better shot you'll have at seeing something. So.
Yeah, that's just.
We still have that. Like, it's not exactly the Hudson Bay, but we still have that massive trough up there in northeast Canada. And I asked questions about this. How the hell does that thing just exist for that long? And it's just the ice pack up there keeps it up there. So, that area around Hudson Bay and Greenland, all that stuff is still frozen. And damn it, we just need more global warming. If we just get more global warming, James, we don't have to worry about that stupid Hudson Bay trough.
I know, right? Come on, guys, start.
And actually, somebody suggested something else really good. If we just completely pave over the Hudson Bay, then we don't even have to worry about it.
Yeah, there we go.
That's so simple. Thanks, Obama. All right. Well, so that's what we got coming up. 3 days, possible chasing in at least the south. Dry line day, take a chance on the cap. The next 2 days are kind of like, dry line day, take a chance on the cap, or deal with unidirectional shear, which sucks regardless, or chase a decent day in horrible terrain, horrible road network, and hope the inversion doesn't really kill the day, and hope that stuff can stay discreet. So, typical early season stuff. Of course, unless you're about to chase one of these 3 days that we're going to talk about soon, then these are definitely the exception for chase days. Now, like I said, March 2nd, 2012 was already talked about with Rich Thompson. I don't want to talk about that. We also talked about March 13th, 1990, which was a big Kansas day, and Nebraska day. We talked about that, I think, beta episode 2 or something like that. It's on the archive. So there's substantial March days out there, and of course, they're just so few and far between. It's really hard. I think what was the last good chase day for the Southern Plains? I would think March 18th, 2012.
Yeah, that was kind of the last one I could think of off the top of my head.
Yeah, I mean, you had that. That was one supercell producing, I think, like four tornadoes in Southwest Oklahoma. What's the other one? March 8th, 2010, which was like a hybrid cold core day. You get a few tornadoes out there near Hammond, Oklahoma. So
Yep.
it just seems like lately Oklahoma's been the only place to really do anything with March. So here we go. Hopefully something happens between now and then. I don't know. And Shane made a really good comment on Storm Track. He's like, I kind of want this to be the tornadoless March. I want to live through that history, the dark history of chasing. I want to be a part of that. And I don't care. I think it's cool. I mean, that'd actually be kind of cool to be like, hey, you know what? I lived through the tornadoless March of
Yeah,
2015.
really.
So, I mean, what do you think, man? I mean, do you think you think the season's just gonna blow up in April and May, just explode, and we're gonna get, 20 tornado days a month between April and May and June? I mean, what do you think?
Honestly, I've tried to do this kind of thing before, and every time I've done it, I've been wrong. But it kind of, I honestly expect this season to kind of blow up here coming into like mid to late April. But I mean, that's just a completely uneducated guess. And I've been crucified for saying this before, but I'd like to err on the side of it. It'll probably be a decent year for most of April heading into May. Might not have as prolific of a June as we did last year, but I don't think it'll be too bad.
Yeah, and I hope that too. Basically, what I think is we're not in as harsh of a. Oh, and I've been saying this the whole offseason. We're not in as harsh of a drought as we have been in the last few years. The Southern Plains probably has a good shot at getting a few setups down here. It's possible. It's a very realistic guess. I've looked on some of those days where we talked about oscillations last week, and I looked on some of those years, I should say, where the tornado counts were low because the oscillation was doing this. Well, you go back and you kind of correspond and say, okay, well, the Panhandle wasn't in a drought this year, even though you had weak El Nino or it was coming out of El Nino, whatever. If it wasn't a strong oscillation one way or the other, and the Panhandle wasn't in a drought, usually the Panhandle had a bunch of tornado reports, and it's usually those days in late spring, June kind of light up. It's really easy to get tornadoes out here in June if you have the moisture, pretty much. That's all we really care about, and not as strong of a capping. But I don't know, man. I'm kind of with you. I want it to be an active year. I want it to at least get over 1,000 tornado reports this year, because that increased my chances of seeing something. But I don't know. I mean, I think it's still too early to tell. And like I've been telling people, I'm not going to panic until late April, and I still don't see anything decent on the horizon. I don't know.
It's kind of like if I haven't seen a supercell, like another decent supercell, by probably April 17th or 18th, somewhere in mid-April, I'm probably going to start being a little bit concerned. But at the same time, you still have all of May and June, so I'll amend my statement until June 1st is when I'll start flipping my shit if nothing has happened yet that has been of note. So
yeah, exactly. And we go back to last year, probably one of the worst years in terms of chasing, unless you pick 3 certain days in June. We had setups, we had moderate risk and stuff in May, over the Central Plains, but they never did anything. Nothing really happened. I mean, there was 2 or 3. Someone will correct me. 2 or 3 moderate risks in central Nebraska that didn't do anything except produce gross, nasty outflow dominant storms or really, really high precip, low visibility, low contrast tornadoes. I mean, just nothing really that you could consider a classic chase day.
Yeah, I say most of May was kind of like dominated by that kind of stuff. I mean, you had May 11th, which was probably the best out of that group of days, and you had like a bunch of other days that just completely busted up there.
June 2nd, I think, was a big day in Nebraska. That was the day where the storm kept sitting on the wrong side of the boundary and kept going outflow and throwing out this wicked outflow and doing crazy stuff. Um, yeah, and then and what was really weird too, and I don't know if I know people remember this, but they probably forgot about it. We kind of had a weird thing come on here in the Southern Plains. We had that, you remember James, that closed low that sat over southern Texas, West Texas, and New Mexico, dumped inches of rain out here. But it was so odd to see that closed low just sit out here for days and days.
Yep.
And I mean, there were a couple of good chase days that came out of that, but it was such a weak setup. It didn't look very strong. It was kind of a synoptically just wasn't a very powerful and appealing day. But we had that kind of weird deal, and I don't know. So anything could happen between now and then. But you know what? Don't worry about it, guys. Okay, we're still in March. Don't worry about this year. Like James said, June 1st rolls around and we still don't have anything good. Then you might can say, you know what, this year really sucks. But because I'm a big advocate of it. I know there's a lot of veterans that are big advocates of it, but it just takes one day, one good chase day, to make your entire year. For me, like 2011, that was a horrible year for me. That was a big tornado count year. Everyone got tornadoes except for me, apparently, that chased all those big days. And I thought the whole year was going to suck because I didn't come out with anything good. And then November 7th, 2011 came around. I got on that storm, saw 4 tornadoes, made my year. It took a November day to make my entire year, but it did it. So that's how it happens.
And we just have to remember, too, I mean, we have it way easier than the guys did probably in like 88 or 87. I mean, honestly, for even on most days that would be so marginal they probably wouldn't even chase, you could still probably pull a needle out of the haystack in there somewhere. It's not, the season's not completely shot if we're not getting, massive, synoptically amazing tornado outbreaks across the plains.
Yeah, and back then, of course, technology wasn't as good, so you kind of had this false hope that the day was going to be good because you looked at everything, but it turned out like crap. And nowadays you could kind of see that a few days in advance, but back then, not necessarily. So.
Yep. So, honestly, I mean, at this point, even if you see me bitching, call me out if I'm bitching about it. I mean, I get in moods. Like earlier, I was in a really shitty mood, but you just kind of got to roll with it, and it'll get better. I mean, 2013 was almost the exact same way. There were some really good chase days that year. Same with 2014. You just kind of got to play the waiting game.
Exactly. I mean, I understand if you have to do it ahead of time and you have to plan ahead of time when you can go out, especially the guys on like East Coast or West Coast or just nowhere near Tornado Alley that are 2-day drives away from the alley. I understand you're kind of in panic mode because you want to see these big synoptic setups. God damn, I can't say that word. And you want to see it happening, and you want to see it come together because then you're like, okay, guaranteed, if I don't screw this day up, I'll see tornadoes here. That kind of runs through your head. But like, I guess you could say some of us here in the Panhandle are very, not Panhandle, I'm sorry, in Tornado Alley, in the Plains, are very spoiled because sometimes we can just, well, I don't know if I'm going to go or not, and then you can wait till the morning of, or even 5 hours before initiation, you can be like, well, I mean, I guess I'll go. I guess I can take time off and do it. So we kind of have it lucky here. I feel sorry for everyone that doesn't live around here, but you know what? That's your personal deal. That's just the way it happens. So, all right. Well, James, do you have anything to add to that?
Nope. I basically said what I had to say.
All right. Well, if you've said everything you got to say, then let's move on. So, like I said, today's a setup analysis show. That little rant, that was kind of for you guys that have been hoping for a good show. But so what do you want to start out with? You want to start out with the classic Tri-State?
Yeah, we'll start out with the Tri-State tournament, mainly because that's the one that I have the least amount of data on. And believe it or not,
I'm surprised. I figured you would have so much video of that day.
I know, dude. It's amazing. Believe it or not, you cannot find video of this tornado. It's like people were out there chasing in horse and buggy. What the hell?
What the hell is Roy Britt doing? With all this footage and not uploading it. I mean, come on. Sorry, yep. Roy Britt. He's an awesome guy. He's got really good video on his YouTube channel of old tornadoes. So that's why that joke was. But
yep.
So anyway, let's go. Let's go. Tri-State. So Tri-State tornado, huge huge, nasty supercell that basically rode along the warm front in southern Missouri and over through all the way through Kentucky. I don't even remember exactly where it went through.
Yeah,
It's Missouri, Illinois, and Kentucky, right?
Missouri, Illinois, Indiana.
Or Indiana. I'm sorry, not Kentucky. Indiana. Okay, yeah. So Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, three states. What's the what? Well, because it was like they figured out it was two tornadoes, but even so, the longest track was like 239 miles. Is that right?
Yeah, so there's been a couple of papers recently. I think there's a Doswell and a few other people just finished up a study on that a few years ago to determine whether or not it was a tornado family. And from what I remember of that paper, it was they couldn't conclusively prove that it wasn't one tornado due to the nature of how they kept records of the damage back then. Like it looked like one continuous path all the way from southeast Missouri up into Indiana.
Yeah, and the problem about that, and the reason why they thought that, besides the fact that there wasn't many chasers on it because there really wasn't much in terms of chasing back then. But the thing was is the area that the tornado hit very heavily wooded. It was really hard to determine whether or not the tornado had lifted or not. So they kind of just went with eyewitness reports. They did some damage surveys through the towns that got hit. And back then they just said this thing was on the ground the whole time because they didn't know any better. I mean, our knowledge of weather was still very young and very, I guess, naive that, this is exactly how it went. But anyway, go on, James.
Yeah, so kind of what you said, so the Weather Service was technically not around. It was the United States Weather Bureau, which was under the Signal Corps at this time. Very poor understanding of atmospheric dynamics in general. I mean, just on top of everything else, I mean, they had almost no idea. I mean, the air mass concept that was proposed by Norwegian meteorologists was not completely universally accepted here until I think late 1920s, somewhere in that range. Forecasts were poor. They didn't put out any warnings. They put out advisories that were often, 2-3 hours late. And I mean, this day, just based off the analyses, like the modern day analyses, if you looked at it, you could tell there's going to be, tornadoes somewhere along that warm front. But we'll just kind of jump right into it here. I have a surface map, a reanalyzed surface map that the AMS did in a scholarly paper. And here it kind of shows here, this is, I believe, the, let me check the time on this, I believe it's 15Z, roughly. The tornado started at 1801Z near Ellington, Missouri. Yeah, this is 12, so about an hour before the tornado formed. Ellington, Missouri is right in there, and then the tornado would track across Indiana, or Illinois and Indiana, into south-central or southwest Indiana, destroyed numerous communities along the way, killed 695 people. And it's just kind of an interesting day to look at. I mean, that storm was a freak of nature, and the fact it literally tracked along the slowly kind of rising warm front here. And you can see here there's a couple of analyses. The warm front was here. It was convectively reinforced. You had your surface pressure trough kind of up here where the warm front would lift to. And then further on in the day, the warm front kind of gradually lifted as the storm initiated. And here's the 16Z analysis of where the fronts relatively were that day, just based on anecdotal data that they picked up and surface ops from that day that the local weather bureau kept. And I think there's here's the mediagram. This is a mediagram from Cairo, Illinois, which is right on the Mississippi River. You can kind of see the winds, before the passage of the warm front, and then as the surface cyclone kind of gets closer, warm front travels right through there. Wind shift out of the south, dry line passes. Temperature maximum is here at 3 p.m. as the dry line passes, and the cold front's gone with higher surface winds in its wake by 4 p.m. and the tornado is already off to the northeast at this point, I think entering or close to entering Indiana. And big thing about this day is the storm traveled at exceptional speeds, which is, pretty common east of the Mississippi during this time of year. Uh, and it's just kind of, most people who have chased days out in Missouri, Illinois, in the Midwest, basically, this time of year know that those troughs eject out of the plains really quickly. Usually have really strong jet maximas associated with it that are coming out. They're shot putting across the plains. Storm speeds are usually, in the 50s and 60s, and I think in this case they estimated that the tornado speed forward motion was like 73 miles per hour or somewhere in that region. And it had a massive track at 230 miles roughly, somewhere in there. Here, actually, right here it says the supercell moved east-northeastward at 59. Sorry, not 73. So, really, still fast-moving supercell. Most people did not know, obviously, what to look for, and with a storm moving that fast, it's probably a large tornado, or as some people suggested, a tornado family. So, 2, 3, 4 tornadoes continuously moving through along that same supercell path that kind of follows that exact damage path that was originally thought to be just one singular tornado. And the kind of theories surrounding that are, pretty interesting. I mean, you had probably a classic case of a supercell literally modifying the warm front, and kind of similar to that May 11th day, the Beaver Crossing Day in Nebraska, where you had the supercell continually modifying the air, re-ingesting kind of stable, cool air, old mesocyclone occluding, putting down a new tornado, and continuing on. And this just happened to be an extreme case where that supercell lasted much longer than you'd anticipate, over 3 states, basically.
And that tornado, of course, still is, I believe, the deadliest single tornado in the U.S. history. Is that correct?
It is. Yep.
So, of course, this was back in the time when there was no warnings, there was not much, lead time for this kind of thing. Of course, this thing was moving at a very, very rapid rate. The forward motion on it was, I think it averaged 59 miles an hour forward motion.
Yep.
And I mean, that's even today's standards. I mean, you get a setup like this today, you're going to have deaths, unfortunately, just because, there's not a whole lot of, lead time. People still get caught up trying to get out of the way. It just happens. So, anyway, go on.
Yeah, that was kind of the meat of that one. The tri-state tornado, it's really just kind of an interesting, it's one of those things that it's kind of on every weather or tornado enthusiast's mind that they think about. It's like the ultimate tornado mystery. Like, it's just did some ridiculous stuff. I mean, it destroyed, that's almost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 or 8 towns all along southern Illinois and into southwest Indiana here. And it's nothing like this, I don't think, has ever happened since that I can think of off the top of my head. And it just kind of makes you think about, will you ever see a tornado or a tornado family like this, sometime in the next 5 years? And all these events before kind of the advent of, modern radar, modern forecasting techniques for severe thunderstorms and tornadoes, it kind of adds a kind of, investigate. It's a perfect mystery, and it kind of leaves you wondering. You have this tornado, the Glacier-Higgins tornado of 49. And you get all these crazy stories out of them that just kind of, they make you think about how, tornado lore gets started, and how, people, hand these stories down in these areas for, 50, 60, 70 years, and it's just kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah, and the Glacier-Higgins Woodward tornado, just to touch on that, back in 1947, I believe.
Oh, yeah, 47, 49.
Yeah, that was what the Weather Service here actually talks about as the only F5 tornado now. There was a lot of reports that could have very well been a tri-state tornado in its own because the storm touched down in the Panhandle, went through Oklahoma, and ended in Kansas. The problem was there was breaks in the damage path, so that really wasn't an actual tri-state tornado. Now, funny enough, though, since then, this has not been the only tri-state tornado. We've had several, well, maybe not several, but there's been other cases of tornadoes crossing 3 states. Of course, April 27, 2011, the super outbreak, that was tornadoes that started in Mississippi, went through Alabama, ended in Tennessee, that kind of deal. But yeah, I mean, certainly when you get these crazy days, it makes you wonder just how bad can it actually get? How bad do you think? I mean, I don't know if anyone else thinks about it, but what do you think is actually like if a rock could talk, if just some random rock in the middle of nowhere could talk, what do you think it has seen in terms of the biggest tornado? Like, are there actually 3 mile wide tornadoes back before anyone was ever even on this land? I mean, it's very possible. I mean, I don't see why it couldn't be if all the ingredients came together. Very inconceivable because we just haven't seen such a thing. But yeah, this tornado kind of leaves a lot of people wondering how bad could it get? And this was one prime example. April 27th, 2011 was a big prime example of how bad it can get. Joplin and stuff like that. So, but yeah.
Yeah, it was.
And real quick, and interesting enough, well, you know what? I'll tell this after you're done, whenever you're done with your side of it, because this is something to close out the subject.
No, I'm basically done. I was just gonna touch kind of one more time on this days like this and days like the Glacier Higgins tornado, Heston, days like that. Those are you see those probably once every 10 years maybe. And
yeah, I mean probably more like
5.
You gotta think, yeah, at least 5, because what's the last big tornado that we've had on the plains? Well, that would probably be Moore or El Reno. Before that, well, it'd probably be
El Reno 1.
El Reno 1 or Joplin or the Piedmont stuff or anything from 2011 because that was just the year of big nasty tornadoes. So, but yeah, I mean, I would say like at least every 3 to 5 years you get something like this. But back then, with such primitive technology and primitive warning systems and not much knowledge of the actual weather, you had a lot of fatalities. You had poor structures in all these little towns in the middle of nowhere, Illinois, and they just get wiped off the map, basically. There's a couple of towns in that map right there that got 100% destroyed, and you don't really hear from them anymore. They're not much of anything anymore. So.
Yeah, I think it might be. It's either Gorham or Griffin. One of these two towns is actually a tornado-induced ghost town, kind of like Manchester. It's just it's one weather event 80 years ago completely shaped this entire area for the next like 20 years. It's crazy to think about.
Yes, and what I was going to say to wrap this up, I'm sure people heard this from a while back, but Bill Paxton was actually asked about a sequel for Twister. And he brought up that they kind of went over the old tri-state tornado area, and it inspired him that he wanted to do a sequel. I just don't think it's come together yet, but it makes you wonder if they're going to try to do something about this, like if they're going to somehow reconstruct this back in the day, or are they going to just kind of run a similar situation?
Eoldie Bill Paxton.
Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, they're gonna be over there, and they're gonna be chasing on horse and buggies, man. And he's gonna have like a. Oh yeah, there we go. Okay, so Bill's in a wagon with Clydesdale, and then whatever his competition is, be his Jonas will all be black stallion and black wagons, and they're chasing each other. Just that'd be awesome. That needs to happen. Someone get Bill on the line right now.
Yeah, just real quick, I was also going to just point out these are the other tornado tracks from the Tri-State Tornado Day. The Tri-State Tornado was not the only tornado. A couple more up here on the warm front, and then a few further down here, out ahead of the main surface low.
Yeah. So and those are all afternoon.
Yep.
So.
Oh, also, I meant to ask you, Marcus. So you're talking rock thing. Is that like Clint Eastwood talking to the chair? Is that what you're getting at here?
Sure.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm just trying to think of whatever could possibly exist for this long and not die, and it had to be a rock. Um, but yeah, you know what? Because I mean, does anyone ever think like, when the Native Americans were living up here and they had these big setups? They had setups like March 28, 2007 that we're going to talk about, or anything of the like. A freaking like, what if Greensburg happened all over again, but 300 years ago? What do you think they thought about it? What in the hell were they like? What's going through their mind when they see that thing tearing across that land? Like, obviously, they're probably believing it's something with the gods because that was kind of their thing. They were really into the whole gods. But, what if they were just sitting out there and watching this monster mile-wide wedge just tearing across the prairies, throwing buffalo and prairie dog everywhere, and then, or you know what? What's a better question? How the hell did they survive like softball-sized hell?
They didn't. There's a story. I think it was from 1830s, 1840s. Some guy was on. He was coming back with furs from the Rockies, and they were going through. I think it was Nebraska, and they had like 4 or 5 bison hemmed in like in a valley next to where they were staying, and for what he described, it sounded like a supercell to me. Started dropping, I think, decently sized hail, killed like 2 of the bison, like severely wounded some of the people that didn't get inside quick enough. It's like, I mean, that thing's not stopping. A TP made out of buffalo hide is not going to stop a softball from ripping through there.
Yeah, I mean, because they made their teepees out of just buffalo hides and stuff like that. So I mean, I don't know, does that stuff actually make the hailstones bounce off? But if you got like softball size hail, there ain't no way that's just gonna like not do anything, is it?
I mean, I have no idea. We'd have to go test that.
All right. Well, let's talk to MythBusters then.
Yeah,
All
there
right.
we go.
So interesting. Some old chasing right there. I'm curious to know if anyone would have even chased that. I doubt it because I mean, what time did that tornado started? Was it 13Z or 12Z or something like that?
It started at 12:55 p.m. or 1:01 p.m. I think.
Oh, okay. So it was an afternoon. Well, I thought you were saying Z, so I'm thinking, oh man, 12Z. That was like 6 or 7 in the morning. And so,
6
no,
a.m.
okay,
Supercell.
Yeah, I mean it's possible. It's happened before.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, how do you chase that? I mean, okay. This is good because you kind of put yourself in that situation if you're chasing that kind of setup. Where would you go? How do you chase that crazy storm that's moving that fast? I mean, I don't think you really can. You kind of just need to let it freight train next to you and hope for the best. But, the next day we're going to talk about, March 12, 2006. This is a fairly recent tornado day, and this actually had a lot of different things going on this day. I didn't even look, but was this thing probably producing snow somewhere just because of how massively synoptic this day was?
Pardon?
I was just March 2006 that we're about to talk about. Do you think was it like producing snow somewhere on the backside of it because it was such a synoptically driven system?
Actually, it might have been. I'm going to check meso-analysis here real quick.
Okay, you do that.
Yeah, no,
So I'll talk about this day. All right, so March 2006, high-risk threat in, I believe it was pretty much all of northern half of Missouri and then central Illinois. Of course, high risk usually means a lot of stuff's going to be going on. A lot of storms, a lot of supercells. Usually high risk will mean very fast storm motions, very high moisture content, so it's very low contrast. I mean, that's the whole reason why it's called high risk, because there's a high risk this is going to do some damage. Now, real quick, before we actually get into the severe weather stuff, this day was also famous in my neck of the woods here in Amarillo. This actually caused some of the biggest wildfires out here, and there was a lot of wildfires that burned out here in the Texas Panhandle that day. 2006 was a very horrible year for chasing out here. Very similar to like 2011 here in the Panhandle, very dry and not a whole lot going on, except for wildfires. So if you wanted to chase some wildfires, then yeah, you can definitely do that. But I'm going to bring up real quick a screen share for the wildfire data. So this is the Amarillo website, wildfires. What you got here is an enhanced satellite image of the wildfires, and I'm going to zoom in here. So as you can see, each one of these little purple areas and pink areas are wildfires, and even down here in Childress County, up here in Kansas, and a couple here in New Mexico. There was one here, and then I think there was one down here. And this is another good shot of it with the holes in the satellite here. But this was one of the worst wildfires we had out here, and not a whole lot to talk about in terms of wildfires. I'm not a big fan of really doing it. I chased one wildfire event one time back in 2011 out here when we had some fires out here in Amarillo. But that just shows you how massive and how effective this system was. And James is going to kind of point out what was going on this day. But high risk, like we said, northern Missouri and central Illinois, parts of Iowa too. 30% hash on the tornado threat. So tornadoes were pretty big threat. Now this is why we picked this day, and this is actually why I picked this day, is because of actually what happened. And James is going to talk about what happened and why it happened. But this was the day known for the 6-state supercell. Now, in your head, that's like, what the hell are you talking about? Okay, so this tornado, or this storm, started right there, the southern storm, near Osage County in Oklahoma. And this supercell continued on through the day, and you can see it's still on the southern fringe of this cluster. And it's going to go through southeast Kansas. It's going to stay very discreet, nothing to the south of it. Now we're entering Missouri now. And this thing is tearing along Missouri. It's producing a lot of tornadoes right here. This is the storm north of it, producing big tornadoes. You can see the little white triangles are all the tornado reports that it's producing. There's more tornado reports right there. And now here we come. We're coming into Illinois. And the two storms are pretty much there now. They're kind of absorbing into one super massive storm. Produces many tornadoes here in Illinois through this day. And look how discreet it is. I've never seen such a supercell stay so discreet for this long, okay? So still producing tornadoes, and now we're going to cross into Indiana. Storm is still very strong, very powerful. Looks like there's multiple updrafts here. Now we're starting it through the night, so everything's kind of getting clustered, but you can still see on the southern end there's still a lot of reds, so the updraft's still very healthy. And then right about here we're crossing into Michigan, and it's on the far southeastern edge. It's kind of dissipating, and that's about where it ends is in Michigan. So the storm went from Noble County, actually is when it started, initiated, in Oklahoma, and ended up out there in Michigan. And there's even some people that talk about this day and talk about that storm. It actually, if you followed it, it goes all the way to Lake Huron near Michigan too. But you can see, can you zoom in on that reports page, James? Because I really want to show everyone, you can kind of see that line of tornado reports through central Missouri and working its way through central Illinois. And then even the little blips up there, northern Indiana and southern Michigan, that was all part of the same storm. So the 6-state supercell is, I don't think a lot of people really know about it, and they're probably like, well, I haven't heard about this. Well, you know, it did produce several violent tornadoes, but it wasn't so much out of the ordinary in terms of how the storm looked on radar. It's just the sheer fact that it survived this long. And do you have any other information about this in terms of how long it was? Because if I remember right, the 6-state supercell lasted over 700, almost 800 miles, and was still a supercell for, I think, over 17 hours.
Yeah, it made it, I think, it made it till a little bit past midnight in Michigan, and it started probably like, I want to say like 11 a.m. or somewhere in that region. It took forever to get to Michigan too.
Yeah, and while you talk about that, James, I'm going to look it up, kind of some of the facts about that supercell. But we'll go ahead and dig into the whole day so you can kind of describe everyone what was that day like.
Sure thing. All right, so 500 chart here, pretty interesting, pretty broad area of really strong winds. Jet streak just coming on shore back here near Baja in Southern California. big old trough, and generally really fast winds basically throughout most of the CONUS. And then by 0Z, that trough had fully ejected across the central plains. You can see it's centered right around here. There's that jet streak nosing into the region. This storm is probably somewhere up here around in the middle of Illinois. Multiple tornado reports already across Missouri and Illinois and Oklahoma. And then this day, kind of, really strong 850s to 12Z. By 0Z, just really, really good fetch from the Gulf here. Really high dew point values ahead of that main low that was just squatting over Nebraska and Kansas. Decent moisture making it all the way up into Iowa and northern Illinois. That storm, somewhere right in there. And then kind of going a little bit higher. Just a massive trough. Something that we haven't seen. We haven't seen a trough like this in a pretty long time. Just huge. If we go to the sounding page real quick, I'm gonna go to the 12Z sounding from Springfield. Kind of not what you'd expect for a high risk day. Here's Lincoln. Kind of zoom in here a bit so you can get a better view. Here's Topeka. You can see here, kind of much cooler than the surrounding stations. And if we jump ahead to 0Z, we go to the Lincoln sounding. Just a massive photograph. Cape isn't that amazing. This is pretty saturated sounding, kind of slight elevated inversion here, 3 kilometers, but the shear was just amazing. Not pretty decent turning, really strong winds throughout the entirety of the atmosphere. Just a huge amount of helicity with this photograph. And if we kind of go to meso analysis here, and we'll look at area 2, check the surface obs for this day. Kind of stepping ahead here, you see, I think the timestamp is 17Z. So the supercell is ongoing. 72 over 63 in Springfield, 74 over 62 in Joplin. Really high dews. Surface low is still right back in here. Pretty decent fetch across most of the high risk area. You can see where the warm front is.
Mm-hmm. Kind of low dew points though, because you look at Missouri or Illinois. Upper 50s for Illinois is, somewhat low, at least.
Oh, yeah.
And then even right there in central Missouri, you barely got 60s. But of course, there was a lot of good advection northward of this moisture, so it still worked out.
Yeah, and you have southeast surface winds, kind of cloudy up here, definitely, along that area of really strong isotropic ascent along that warm front. Low 70s, upper 60s over low 60 dew points all the way across this area. Just kind of a perfect setup for a long track supercell like that, and that was, just a crazy day. Mid 60s keeps going, and we're at 1Z right now. You still have mid 60s across all of Illinois, and those supercells are starting to exit this region right here, up right around here. If we jump ahead to radar, we can just kind of watch it for a second. You can just see it. Supercell initiates right there at 15Z. Just keeps on trucking right through that region of higher dews, right along that warm front. Oh, whoops. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
There was some nighttime convection, but yeah, there it goes, just chugging along.
Yep. Just keeps on going, and
look at the supercells out back in Missouri too. That was quite a bit ahead of that cold front.
Yeah, because you saw that this entire region down here was completely untapped. There was no convection before that supercell ran through there. It was just completely clear, untapped moisture and instability down here across southern Illinois. And of course, those two supercells get out ahead, and they just blow up. I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 supercells, all on that line. They just keep on going into the night before they finally die off, and they spit out an absolutely staggering amount of tornado reports. 140, pretty big day. I had a little bit of trouble finding good video from this day, obviously, but I managed to find one kind of decent video from Sedalia, Missouri. Gonna go full screen here. This guy has a really bad tendency to just kind of zoom in on the funnel, and the contrast suffers from it, but it gets better here in a quick second. Uh,
Well, come on, early season stuff. You haven't been chasing on winter. You're gonna be excited.
yeah, really. Just kind of step ahead here so you can kind of see that. There it is back in the rain there, and action gets going to the surface here in about the next 20 seconds. Yeah, right here. It's big, beefy wall cloud sitting right up there. Obviously, contact with the ground circulation.
Mm-hmm. Well, the motion in this wall cloud is actually pretty substantial. Kind of what you expect from a setup like that, to have a pretty strong storm right there. I mean, right there, I'm thinking to myself, man, this thing's probably gonna be a big tornado.
Yep, and there it is. Yeah, you can just see that. You can just see the motion of those clouds right there. I mean, the rotation's insane.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of sits there and churns along. And kind of you got your clear slot right back in there. Kind of got that nice orange tint in the background because it was later in the day.
Right.
And I'm not sure if it ever actually fully condenses in this video, but it just kind of moves off to the slowly off to the east-northeast. See if it. Oh, here it is. It's about to. And wow, look at that.
Wait, clear the trees, and now the hills. Look, yeah, we're chasing Missouri, all right, because look at this bull crap.
Yeah.
Come on, and
there it is.
And there's like 5 seconds of it, barely, and then, wow, that's cool, man.
It's a great-looking supercell.
I mean, it's just the wall clouds the end of that storm. I like it when it does that, and you could actually, the RFD clears out enough to where you get sunlight on there, and I mean.
Jump ahead a bit because it, I think, produces here shortly again. Yep, here it is.
Little snaky tornado.
Kind of got that ghostly white to it. I mean, honestly, right now, I'd take a nice Missouri day like this. I mean, beggars can't be choosers, right?
Yeah. Now, while we're watching this, I did read that that there were some deaths in the Texas Panhandle from the fires. And not only that, but the grass fires out here in the Panhandle toasted about 600,000 acres in the one day. So that's quite a bit. For any terms, and actually, 600,000 acres, that's more than some of those fires out in Arizona and stuff. But not only that, the smoke from the actual fires out here reduced visibility in Oklahoma City to less than 2 miles. So, and that's pretty crazy to hear. Now, in terms of that supercell, I don't know if you got this. I'm going to go ahead and show this because this is some really cool stuff as well.
Yeah, go right ahead.
This is actually something I found. It shows, basically, it's like a composite image of the supercell. And we're going to kind of look at this. So what you're looking at is right here. This is what the radar looked like pretty much throughout the day. So, and it has timestamps on here. 1735Z, you get your first blips on radar here down in Noble County, Oklahoma. And you can see it trace its way through Osage County, then it starts cutting through. And then you start getting some tornado reports out here in Kansas around midday, 1937Z, then there's a 2021Z. The storm continues on through Missouri, grows in size, and then, of course, by the magic hour, around 23Z, 0Z, it's in its peak intensity. And you got the two supercells, and it's funny, I mean, if you go back, these two supercells kind of just parallel each other for a long time. But they finally sort of congealed into one once they started crossing into Illinois. And as the night wore on and the evening wore on through Illinois, the strong tornado, and I mean, well on through the night, it's still in northern Indiana, and here we go. And this is what I was saying. Now, the storm pretty much dies out here at 8:55Z, but they believe that they could still see what was probably the updraft continued all the way on until 1041Z, which is what is that? That's 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning, um, out here on Lake Huron. Um, Now the storm, like I said, 17 and a half hours long is how long that storm lasted. Which, can you even think of another time when that actually happened? I certainly can't. Not only that, 790 statute miles from Noble County, Oklahoma, all the way to Jackson County, Michigan. So, I mean, that's insane, dude. That's unheard of.
Yeah, I mean, I've never seen anything like it.
So, crazy day. And there was some pretty notable chasers on that day too. I was reading through Rich Thompson chased that day. You had guys like I believe was it Tim Marshall, I think maybe chased that day. I'm not too sure exactly. Robert Prentice chased that day as well. I mean, there's not much to show for that day. I think that was kind of a difficult day if you weren't able to keep up with the storm. But that's just how it goes sometimes. But very prolific day in terms of different weather that went on. Of course, you had the big fires here. Did you find out if there was any snow, James?
I couldn't find any snow reports, but just looking at the surface ops for this day, I would assume there was probably at
Somewhere on
least.
the backside of it.
Yeah, I'll pull it up here real quick.
Oh, that's fine. I'm just saying it was a very diverse day in terms of weather. That's one of those systems that you get that will really pretty much the entire country feels it. Yeah, I mean, look in Nebraska, you got 20-degree dew points, or 20-degree temperatures. So yeah, I mean, it was definitely cold enough for snow, and with that much energy coming through that area, I wouldn't be surprised if they were getting some whiteout conditions out
Probably.
there.
I
So,
can actually check radar real quick. Oh yeah.
oh yeah, look at all that. So
Yeah, that was probably winter precip of some sort back in there.
they're in Nebraska and South Dakota. So
Yep.
it's kind of funny because you hear this a lot, and it kind of boggles your mind where one side of the system is producing a lot of snow and blizzards, the other side's producing strong tornadoes. But that's just how weather is. That's why it's really cool to do that. So, all right. So we covered those 2 days. Those were pretty much good examples of what a typical March setup is, especially the really strong ones. They usually involve very fast motions, very large synoptic patterns that kind of affect everybody in the country for the most part. Anyone that's important, basically, right? And then, and then, very difficult to chase them because a lot of times they don't end up in the best terrain, the best road network, or anything like that. There was one exception, which is what we're going to talk about next. March 28, 2007, it was the first day to kick off, or the first big day, I guess. Actually, it was the second day because I believe there was a February outbreak of that year too. But this was the first big day on the plains for the 2007 season, which was a very historical season in terms of tornadoes and just the overall pattern of 2007 worked out very well. Of course, it was a El Nino type of year, so that really helps out in the southern plains. I don't know. I don't want to get in that argument anymore. I hear enough of that shit on Storm Track about oscillations and what they do.
Yeah.
So whatever. It was a great year, regardless of what oscillation was going on. And this day right here in particular, it was a very, if you chase that day, you probably had a really good day. I mean, there was tornadoes from South Dakota, like I said, through Nebraska. The Nebraska took a little while to actually go, but all the way through western Kansas, Oklahoma Panhandle, and of course the Texas Panhandle, all got a taste of tornadoes. So James, let's take it away. Let's start going through one of the best days in terms of southern and high plains chasing.
Sure. Honestly, nothing more you can say about this day other than it was one of the best high plains days out of the Panhandle in southwest Kansas that I can think of in recent memory. '07 had a whole string of those days, kind of an early bloomer season. All the good stuff was really kind of focused between the last week of March to the first week of May. That was when all the big stuff happened, but still overall a really great year. If you got on those events, here you can see moderate risk all the way from Nebraska down into kind of west central Texas on 13Z, 10% hatched, all up and along down this corridor. And this day kind of had to work. You had a really good trough to work with, something you don't usually see. I mean, that's something that's typical of May or early June out on the southern high plains. Just big ass low sitting over here over the four corners. Your entrance region is right back here.
That
Uh,
is a sexy, sexy low right there.
oh yeah, I mean, if you like with how shitty we've like the troughs have been recently the past 2 years, this is something that's just amazing looking. Like that is absolutely beautiful. You can see here by 0Z, it doesn't move too much. I mean, it's still centered almost over the four corners. That first kind of pulse of the jet max ejects
Mhm.
through, with another one rounding the base of the trough back to the west. Uh,
Negative, almost negatively tilted.
yeah, it's almost it's kind of almost neutral at this point uh, at 0Z. And then the 850 is really strong to start the morning. 50 knots, 55 knots down here. Lots of moisture in place the day before, so you didn't have any trouble with that kind of just-in-time panhandle moisture crap. Yeah,
Yep.
southeast 850s all the way up to basically South
Dakota.
Dakota. Yeah,
Yeah.
great shear. Kind of little localized areas of higher moisture up there. And just before we kind of dive into some of the deeper stuff here, this is just a look at the preliminary reports. This is a textbook corridor outbreak. Just tornadoes all up and down the dry line, up and down, and kind of up here in the Triple Point region. Big arcing dry line all the way down into the Panhandle and through Texas. Tornadoes all along the Cap Rock right here, and then up into the Oklahoma Panhandle, southwest Kansas. Looks like a lot of big days out in the Panhandle tend to do that, kind of similar to April 22nd, where you had, tornadoes from Colorado, Nebraska, down through Kansas into the Panhandle, where most of the chasers were that day. So we'll just kind of jump right in here and take a look at the surface obs before we look at the satellite. So this right here is the 14Z surface obs on the SPC site. Your surface cyclone is all the way up here in southeast Wyoming, basically southeast Wyoming, northern Colorado. Back to surface winds all across the southern central plains. High 60s down here in west central Texas, kind of random pockets of it. Mostly 60s and upper 50s all the way up into Nebraska. Kind of step ahead a few hours. We'll stop here. Actually, we'll go ahead one more hour to 18Z. Here you can see still back surface winds, much higher dew points making their way across Texas into the Panhandle. Dry line kind of right in there, dry line arc right there. Storms will start to fire here, move into that deeper moisture just off the Cap Rock and start producing tornadoes. And then along with more storms that will form up here closer to the surface low right here in northeast Colorado. Not much you can really say about this other than it was almost textbook. I mean, storms just exploded almost at the same time. You could see the influence of that first jet streak coming out over the plains from the Four Corners region. You could see it, kind of see some indications of it right back in here. And then suddenly it just kind of goes a little bit longer, a little bit more support, and then boom. By 22:15, you've got your first hints of initiation down here in the Panhandle, and then bam, everything along the dry line starts to light up as that second impulse moves through the region. And it just keeps, all of these are really, really cold cloud tops. These are producing tornadoes down here, right here, and all along here, up closer to the surface low. Let's kind of take a quick look at some observed soundings. We'll start with Amarillo. Pretty prominent EML right here. I mean, that's kind of right in between dry and moist adiabatic. It's probably 7 degrees Celsius per kilometer right here from 850 up to about 3 kilometers roughly. Really strong winds. Kind of the shear profile isn't really there yet, but good hydrolapse over here. Pretty low spread to start the day. Some moisture has already been there, and then if we jump ahead of 0Z, completely open sounding, insanely curved wind barbs, great looking photograph, pretty decently high caped 2,115 joules per kilogram mixed layer cape, uh, great uh, great mid-level and low-level lapse rates here, kind of average spread that you'd expect, and further east storms are producing tornadoes at this point. And if we just kind of move a little bit north to Dodge City at the same time, see if we can click it here. Here's Dodge City. Definitely not, the shear profile is definitely not as pretty as it was further south, but here you can see much higher cave values, 4,226 joules per kilogram mixed layer, completely open, slight inversion at 700 millibars. And obviously this is just going to produce tornadoes. And then taking one more step up here, look at that wind profile right there. And then you have really high cape values again, all the way up and down this dry line, up to the surface line, the triple point. Just insane day. Then you kind of have that dry punch there at 3 kilometers. Before we move on, just kind of want to take one more look. We can check when the mesoscale discussions had a really good. See if we can find
yeah, this day actually gave us a PDS tornado watch here in the Amarillo County Warren area. So we'll definitely look at that whenever.
Yeah, here it is. Kind of wonky looking dry line, kind of arced back. The front was actually right on its heels, kind of typical of March, but it never caught up with the dry line until I think after dark, and tornadic supercells obviously initiated and started producing multiple tornadoes right as they moved off the top of the State Plains and into I think it was roughly 62, 65 degree dew points out here in eastern Texas Panhandle.
Right. This day was a pretty crazy day, and I think right there is the PDS tornado watch. Pretty much for all of the Lubbock and Amarillo County Warren area. The probabilities were pretty high on that tornado watch too. Eight was at 90 or 80% for 2 or more tornadoes, and a 60% chance of those being F2 to F5. Those are pretty high for this area. You really don't see. In fact, I don't even think I've seen a tornado watch that with the probabilities like that in this area, at least, in quite a long time, and maybe not even since then. There's your pretty much the related MD just saying, hey, by the way, this is where we're gonna expect things. Not much to say on that, but
Yep.
real quick before you do looped, I think. Let's see. Do I have? Well, you know what? We'll go ahead and run through the. Do you have radar loops? Because I got imagery. It's not really a loop, but it shows the different couplets and radar signatures. But
oh yeah, if you actually use that, because that'll have better resolution than this.
okay. Well, not really, because this is all like kind of the old stuff. But so this is from the Amarillo Weather Service page. 15 tornadoes reported in the Amarillo area, which is a lot, considering that we usually only get about 20 to 22 tornadoes a year on average. And lately, these last few years, that average has been going down. But I'm sure hopefully we pick it back up. So the first set of radar images are from the storm cluster that started southeast of Amarillo. This is the stuff down by Silverton. This stuff would eventually produce the very photogenic Bryce, Texas tornado, Bryce being right over here. That tornado was the very famous, gorgeous white tube as the sun kind of came in on the backside and lit it up. Also, another good storm firing in the far northeast Panhandle. This storm would later go on to, I believe this is the storm that went on to produce the Elmwood tornado out there in the Oklahoma Panhandle and Beaver County. Now, this is the biggest hail producer storm, I believe, of this entire setup, was a storm that just missed Amarillo. It's actually a left split of the storm that was going to produce the Bryce tornado. This storm, the left split, ended up producing softball-sized hail on this day, which for March, that's pretty crazy. So right about here, it's kind of a messy-looking radar image, of course. There's this big radar gap that runs through southeast of Amarillo, so you'll have to kind of excuse that area. But these two supercells did end up producing tornadoes. The southern one, of course, here produced the Bryce, Texas tornado. There's a velocity couplet just to the west of Bryce, looking pretty strong. Now this storm right here, this is that one. This is the storm that was starting down south, and of course we're getting further away from the radar, so the radar image looks kind of crap. But this is the storm that produced the Elmwood, Oklahoma tornado. I mean, it's so hard to get any sort of readings out there. Um, Now this is the Donley County tornado set of tornadoes. This was as the evening was wearing on. Near McLean. McLean nearly got hit pretty hard by a tornado that night, large tornado. Very interesting. If you actually read the tornado report for the McLean tornado, they use some very strange wording that you don't really hear from any other damage report. And what I mean by that is they rated the tornado because they found large amounts of mutilated deer out near McLean that night from that tornado, which is, usually you kind of think those animals have a sense of weather occurring and they would get out of the way, but I don't know. Deer are pretty stupid, so I'm not surprised by that. So, yeah, this was later on that night. This was the storm near Allen Reed. This was actually the storm that almost wiped out McLean. This tornado went very close to McLean, and of course there was another tornado up here in LaFours that happened too. Here's the radar couplets off of those. You can see quite a few tornado reports on the northern storm, and one big report out here near McLean. So real quick, since we're here, we'll take a look at some of these pictures. These are from, this was some damage in Beaver County. This was from the Elmwood tornado. This was out here, or actually, yeah, this was near Elmwood, basically, or Beaver, I should say. This tornado actually grew pretty large in size, all things considered. Right here is that very famous white tornado near Silverton, or I should say Bryce, Texas, small community of Bryce. Out there in no man's land, there really is no roads out there, and I'm surprised they even got a vantage point out there. So good job if you were out there on that tornado and got this kind of view. Now, there's probably way better pictures of that tornado, but here's another picture of that Bryce tornado. As you can see, white sunlit on the backside. Very, very beautiful tornado. This is the Elmwood tornado, at least the beginnings of it. I believe this is the same one that goes through Beaver later on that day, which is the one we saw first. But you can see it was actually a pretty nice tornado as well. And see, you saw the radar image, how little and puny that thing looked on radar, but ground truth, this is what you got. So that's why that area's got a pretty bad radar gap in general. Man, don't you wish, James, that they put a radar out, like in Woodward at least?
Pardon?
I said, don't you wish they would put a radar out in like Woodward or something?
Yeah, they need one out there kind of to bridge the gap between Amarillo and Dodge City, because right now that like area, the Oklahoma Panhandle and that parts of northeast New Mexico just are not covered by anything.
Yeah, and they have Vance radar out there, but there's that huge gap that shoots out to the west, so you can't see anything that's going on near Woodward because of that radar, that interference. So, but anyway, so there's some images from the Amarillo website. James probably has a lot more, and he probably has some pretty good video too of that day. So James, we'll go ahead and jump to you for your stuff.
Sure. Yep. We're going to start with some right off the bat with video from David Drummond. His video from this outbreak wasn't listed which tornado this was. I don't believe. Let me check here. This is the Plainview tornado. So kind of on the southern end. I mean, nice looking tornado. I mean, all these storms had pretty nice looking tornadoes. Kind of a little bit different than April 22nd was. I mean, all of these were decently high contrast tornadoes from what I remember.
Yeah, this tube, I believe, makes full condensation here. It crosses the highway. I know exactly what highway he's driving on. I think I've chased storms on that highway 2 or 3 times in like the last couple of years. But yeah, that's just a nice little tube there. And the thing about it is, a lot of people were up in this area near Silverton, So David probably had this tornado all to himself, or at least very few chasers on this tornado. Um, there was a lot of people on that Silverton tornado, though. I keep saying Silverton, but it was actually Bryce. But man, yeah, that's a just a nice tornado. Then yeah, go ahead and skip ahead a little bit. Just a nice ghostly tube out there in the middle of nowhere, not hitting anything. And then I believe he starts going again after it. And I think yeah, it's going to produce again. You see the white funnel here on the right side, just growing and growing and just starting to come down. Now, see David here, he successfully hook sliced that storm twice because, yeah, as you can see, he's driving in from the west, looking east. I mean, man, look at that! It just that wall cloud just like opens up, and here it comes.
Yeah, it's like a perfect amphitheater.
Yep. And that's the advantage right there of coming in from the west. As long as you don't have too much cloud cover behind you, you get that nice white, lit up tornado. But you do have to worry about the RFD. So if you're not afraid of the RFD,
Yeah, we learned that the hard way this past week. That's kind of the end of the photogenic tornadoes of that. We'll kind of skip ahead here. This is Wesley Luganbill's video from this day, and I think this has the Bryce tornado on it.
I believe, yeah, he was on that tornado, yes.
That was the same tornado that kind of went into was it Caprock Canyon State Park?
Yes. That's out there by Turkey, Texas.
Yep. I mean, that's an amazing looking sight right there in great chase country for the most part until you start getting off the Caprock at least.
Yeah, then you really have to worry about road options and just a big lazy wall cloud for a little while, but eventually it just ramps up, produces this lovely tube.
Oh man, makes you wonder.
Oh man, yeah, you ready to get out there again?
Maybe.
It makes you wonder if this will happen tomorrow, and no one will watch it. So.
God, wouldn't that be something else? Kind of skip on ahead here a little bit to get to the shot that everyone knows and loves. Here it is. So it's starting to kind of go down a bit, and it'll fully condense and turn into that nice backlit kind of stovepipe, I think.
Yeah, there it is, sun peeking out, lighting up the bottom half of that funnel that's only about halfway down. But eventually here starts to fully condense. And Wesley must be trying to settle down because I'd be jumping around too.
Yeah. Autofocus for the loss.
I know it.
Here we go.
Yeah, so right here is that shot. I guess that looks like is that a still? Yeah. So there's some of the stills from Wesley. One of the better looking, and there it is. Now that's a cool form right there because the whole mezzo pretty much tightens up and just creates this big wide tornado.
I mean, I think it's just huge. I mean, you can see the entire tornado cyclone, mesocyclone above it. Oh, and then here's some of the nighttime tornadoes.
Yeah, this is the one that's the tornado that nearly went through McLean. That's the one that they found mutilated deer at.
Mm.
Whenever you say that in your damage assessment, it just makes that tornado sound 10 times more brutal.
Oh yeah, I know, right? Like when you find livestock.
Yeah.
Oh man. I think it has one more shot of it coming. Maybe not. Yeah, there's. Yep, right there. So just kind of a cool day, at least on this end of it. And it didn't do. How many fatalities were there in the Panhandle that day, Marcus?
I don't know. I don't think there was many here in the Panhandle, but
yeah, this next tornado was I think the killer, um, the Beaver County, Oklahoma tornado.
Yes, that's where the fatalities were actually, was the Beaver County tornado.
And this is from Vern Carlson, and this was kind of on the northern end of those kind of that string of supercells. Uh,
Hmm.
the sad part is Beaver County is mostly kind of empty. It's kind of rolling prairie, but I think it kind of clipped the town right here. And this is kind of a famous photo of the two separate areas of condensation that kind of come together, and there's a little brief hole right there, and then they
Yeah.
fully condenses.
Yeah, I'm not sure on the death count on that. I think maybe one or two, but for sure that was the killer. I don't think there was any actually in the Panhandle, but the Beaver County one did, I believe, have a couple fatalities. So
And there you go. It's going at a pretty good clip too. Just kind of keeps on churning, and then, I mean, of all the tornadoes that would have, you know, that would have ended up being a killer tornado, this is probably the ones I would not think of. You know, up there, kind of in the middle of no man's land, and it kind of skinnies it up a bit and moves off.
do you have footage from the Nebraska stuff and the Kansas stuff?
I do not. I can
Okay.
grab it real quick. If you
Look
was,
that up.
yep.
Yeah, I'm going to show some pictures of this day. Eric Gwynn had a very good day that day. He got some really good pictures. I love his stuff, man. He was a big inspiration to me. This was the Silverton, or I should say the Bryce, Texas tornado, kind of in its early development. Just a really nice, ramped up wall cloud with a nice tube. Very well contrast. You can see the sunlight hitting on the backside already. If you go back, here's where the tornado gets really nice. Of course, you get that really awesome backlit tornado. I mean, I dream for that shot right there. I wish I can get one of those, this year. I don't think I really have one that's backlit too much. I got the sunset tornadoes, but that was more of the silhouette thing. Um, but you can see just how gorgeous that tornado was. RFD cut very nicely right here, so it's a very classic tornado. And then right here, that's kind of towards the end where it was getting really big, and kind of took on a weird shape. The base kind of got a little discombobulated as this was going on, so definitely the end of that. And then the rope out, which really isn't seen too much, was also a very pretty sight to behold. Um, so yeah, that area down there did really well. Very, very good setup for the Panhandle. It's been a long time since we've seen something like that, at least around here. I guess 2010, April 22nd, you could probably count that as the last somewhat multicellular outbreak that we had in the Panhandle. But it's been a while. So, you find them, James?
I couldn't find any of the Nebraska ones that were not nighttime videos, but I did find the Goodland, Kansas tornado that Skip has from this day.
Okay. And yeah, the nighttime. Okay, yeah, I'll look up the nighttime stuff because actually the stuff in Nebraska was at night, and that's what I was thinking. But go ahead, show your video.
And here we go. It's kind of a nice little tornado out there.
And see, look at the time of day. This was towards dark, and this is what I was saying. The stuff in northwest Kansas and western Nebraska, it took a little while to actually get the storms going. It was a nighttime event for the most part.
It was kind of 2007. Kind of did have a lot of nighttime events out there on the high plains, which is kind of strange when you think about it in the context of the past decade. You don't usually get these events that far west this late at night. Just kind of slowly moves away. Skip ahead here and comes right back down. And you can see it's getting much darker now. Still a little bit of lightning back in the core to kind of illuminate it a bit. And there it kind of slowly moves away, and then it's gone. Yeah, chasing out on the high plains after dark is one of those things that I don't think I've ever actually chased. Maybe 30 minutes after sunset. Out here in the far reaches of Western Alley, just because nothing. The dry line always ends up pushing too far east during the late afternoon, early evening, or the cold front catches up too quickly, and you know it's very rare anymore to get setups like that out west. I think April 14th was the last time I could think of nighttime tornadoes on the plains that were still going on well after 0Z.
Yeah, I'm assuming. Well, you know what? I had trouble finding the video because I think Mike keeps it on his DVDs because I know he sells DVDs. But uh, here's pictures of that tornado in Grant, Nebraska that I was talking about. Uh, I mean, he had to wait till after sunset, but yeah, that storm ended up producing this massive tornado near Grant, Nebraska. You can see the power flash here, and as you go on, you can see the tornado just kind of grew in size, pretty much growing into a wedge in Grant, Nebraska. Actually, just missed town, so luckily for them, they kind of got away from that. So, and I believe he got another tornado out by Ogallala that day as well. So, very, very active day. It's been a long time since we've had a day like that. Kind of out here in the high plains, but maybe this is the year. I don't know. Hopefully, this is the year. We're all exhausted. We're all tired of chasing crappy storms and crappy setups and having to worry about flies in the ointment, so to speak, when it comes to talking about setups. And you're always going to have your problems with every little setup. But I'm kind of with you guys. I'm tired of chasing maybes. I'd rather chase for sures. At least there's a better shot at seeing something. You can always still screw that up, though.
Yep.
So, hey, well, never mind. I saw Skip was in the chat room. So, but anyway, yeah. So, any final thoughts on that day, James?
No, other than that, I want it back. I mean, please, for the love of God, something out that way. Like, I know it doesn't matter where you chase, but anymore it kind of matters to me because I've been in a rut of chasing the same goddamned, godforsaken regions the past 3 years. I'm getting tired of it.
Well, and you're not the only one. I think every single chaser has a problem with what's going on right now in terms of the setups. And I can't say anything about that. You're entitled to be mad, and you're entitled to feel like you do, but it's kind of futile. It's not going to help anything out, punching holes through walls over setups. I hope you're not doing that, because if you're doing that, then please don't chase, because we don't need you out there. But there's quite a few people that they're getting tired of what we've been seeing on the models, and it just seems like every setup that comes across, there's a major issue with it. Something either about capping, or which it really isn't a big problem unless it's nuclear cap, but shears coming out of the wrong direction. You have veered profiles. I mean, there's just tons of problems that's been going on in the last few years, and it's you think about I guess 2010 would fall into that category where it just seemed like every rain shower basically produced a tornado, which is kind of weird because the tornado count numbers are very low for that year, but it seemed like every little setup, any sort of marginal day in the plains, just produced. I mean, it was that simple. And I started in 2008, so that 2 years in, and I get the 2010 season, I'm feeling like, oh, this is easy. Storm chasing is going to be easy. And then I get hit with 2011, and 2011 for me sucked. I mean, for some it was really good. 2012 was somewhat of redemption, although I didn't get too many photogenic tornadoes. I just got several crappy tornadoes. And then 13 happened, and 14 happened. Were just back-to-back horrible years for me, for most of the people, I should say. So, I mean, you have to endure all this crap, and all that does is make the little setups that do produce some bird fart tornado really good for you, which I guess is good. But I just hope people aren't getting too upset with what the weather's doing, and I noticed this in Storm Track. It just seems like every day or maybe every few days, some sort of conspiracy theory, sort of topic, not an exact topic, comes up, and it gets linked to some news station because the news stations are bored and blah blah blah. So, the thing about it is we still don't know everything about weather. So we can't predict how everything goes. All we can do is speculate that this oscillation does this to the weather, and this pattern does this, and that and does this. So
Yep.
um, until we get a full understanding on what the weather will do, all we can do is speculate and hope. And I think that's kind of why I like chasing, is because it's not a guarantee anymore. I mean, there's days that are better than others in terms of chances, but even that's not a guarantee. So that's that. I think that's what draws me in. I wonder, in terms of future generations, let's just throw out, let's say 50 years from now, when it's pretty much, let's just say computers can have cracked the code for tornadoes, and computers can now predict tornadoes days in advance. I mean, to me, that kind of steals some fun away from it. The whole guessing and wondering and hoping is what really, it's not the main thing that gets me out there, but it is one thing that gets me out there even more. So,
Oh yeah,
uh, I mean, what do you think? Maybe this is a topic for a show, and if anyone wants to come on the show next week, we'll say next week because let's just go ahead and plan this now. Let's screw it, James. Let's start planning our shows on the show.
yeah. Fuck you guys. You have to listen to us playing this.
Yeah. So I mean, so that's a good topic right there. If let's say in 50, let's say you go, it's 50 years from now, okay? And let's say you're an up and coming chaser. You're whatever they're gonna call it then, right? You're 20 years old. You just got out of college or something, or I don't know, whatever your situation is. Let's say you're okay. Let's say this. Let's say you're 22 years old. You're just out of college. You got a job, and now you're able to chase. And now computers can predict when a tornado will happen days in advance, where it's going to hit exactly. I mean, it can pin it down to the square mile where it's going to happen and where it's going to live. Do you even care about chasing anymore? Do you actually go out and hope, or not? I mean, there's no hope anymore. You know what's going to happen. I mean, what's going to happen is this little strip of land where this trainer's going to go is just going to be lined with cars, right? And everyone's going to film it. Everyone's going to get the same exact view. No one's going to bust anymore because we're guaranteed tornadoes. I mean, does that take away the fun? Does that take away the hope and wonder of the whole chasing sequence? I mean, sure, there's guys out there that all they want to do is see tornadoes, but what if they're guaranteed all the time? Like, you knew exactly when and where. I mean, do you still enjoy doing it? And are you going to enjoy doing it being shoulder to shoulder with hundreds of other people that are just like you that want to just see a tornado? See, that's the question. Do we want to figure out weather completely, or do we not?
And it kind of boils down to, you have two different branches of, thinking here. From a straight meteorological perspective, that is absolutely necessary. It can only help. But from a completely selfish chaser standpoint, at the same time, that takes the entire chasing. To me, feels like a hunt. Basically, it is completely
Exactly.
unpredictable, random, wacky bullshit. Is the way I think. There's the meteorology is extraordinarily helpful with it, but cannot always give you all the answers to everything you'd want to know when you're chasing. Like, for example, why that storm over there that had much better instability was to the south, was right on the dry line, or right off the dry line. Days like Rosal, days like that, you just can't, unless you have very specialized box data over a certain grid point. You're not going to know everything that went on there. You're not going to know what made your forecast go wrong, yada, yada, yada. You can just kind of take educated guesses at it. And that's what makes it fun. You keep learning. If you have, like a quarter of a mile resolution or something absolutely ridiculous, or like something like that, it just kind of takes the fun out of it for me. I mean, the challenge is what makes it fun. And honestly, if that ever happened, I would just not even use it. I wouldn't even bother, just to make it fun for myself.
I mean, that's kind of what you got to do. But then that means you'll be wanting to bust. You know what I mean? Like, because it's gonna be really obvious when you're doing this without looking at that computer. Let's just say it's the supercomputer that has a quarter mile resolution and it can pinpoint 3 days in advance. This is where the tornado is going to be. Well, I mean, you're gonna feel really stupid when you don't use that computer and you drive out there and you're sitting in your Target and you look around and you're like, huh, there's nobody else out here. I wonder if this is not where it's gonna happen. Like, oh, I mean, it's just that's such a tough question because I love chasing. I love seeing tornadoes, but like you said, it's like a hunt. It's all the same. It's all rolled into one experience, and the experience begins days in advance. Like we were talking about earlier, you days in advance to where is it gonna do something Monday? Is it gonna do something Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever. I mean, that's part of the fun for me. Now, to some people, it's not. Some people they just want to go out there and see it, and that's it. But I I mean, I don't know. This is a very this is a very good question. I'm glad I thought of it. I'm taking full credit for it. So
Hell yeah.
all right. So next week, if any of you viewers want to be on the show next week and talk about this, please let me know on Storm Track or let me know on Twitter or Facebook. We'll definitely bring that up. There was another topic that came to mind. Um, James, did we talk about a different topic? I thought we did.
Uh,
Oh, okay. I tell you what, I found it because this was actually a suggestion for a show idea. All right.
Alrighty.
So, social media and the weather. All right. This is going to be a discussion about the viability of social media for weather information dissemination and disgruntled meteorologists who strive to discredit weather enthusiasts in the social space. Basically, this was a show idea I got. Basically, social media and their chasers and what they post about severe weather and hyping certain days versus what the meteorologists are saying about the day. There's friction right there. As a matter of fact, this was a subject in our spotter classes this year when I helped them out this year. One of the topics was make sure you know who you're getting your weather information from in terms of social media. Make sure it's a accredited meteorologist or accredited veteran storm chaser. Make sure it's not some 15-year-old kid that can see a weather map and say this is what's going to happen. So I think I think that's kind of where it wants to go, and maybe even throw the third party, which would be the actual chasers, kind of what Storm Track is. I mean, I know we're not totally against the Weather Service and what they do. We like to work with them, but the Weather Service definitely doesn't like chasers, or at least some places don't like chasers. Um, so there's kind of that friction there. I'd like to talk about that too. I'd like to get some different points about it from different people, maybe even both sides of the coin on that one. So that'd be really cool. Maybe we can have an all-out battle royale or
oh,
something.
okay. Bring
Um,
bring virtual knives on the show.
yeah, there we go. So so there's two topics for next week, which we will be trying to get guests for. Let's do this now. So hold on. I believe Shane's got an idea for me. I guess he's working on it.
Yeah.
Uh,
Michael, I'm
yeah.
gonna
He
I'm gonna
just.
veto that one, Michael. I'm sorry, man.
Okay, yeah. No way, Michael Gavon. No
No
way on that
way.
one.
There's not enough alcohol in the world for that.
Not so much alcohol. There's not enough patience in my brain for that. So, I don't want to say that out loud. Well, what Shane was basically saying is have chasers on the show who disagree and argue and fight. Okay, Shane. Well then I want you on the show, and then we'll get Hannah Taylor in here too, and then y'all can just talk about stuff. Actually, you know what? We could probably get Shane, and there's probably a big long list of chasers that like to yell at Shane. So
Yeah, there you go.
Shane, just come on the show. We'll get whoever doesn't like you, and we'll put them on the show, and then y'all could talk about stuff. I think who was his last person you got in a fight with? I think Alex Heimberger, whatever his name was. But yeah, he did a whole vlog on that. By the way, I'm gonna plug Shane because he plugged me on his show. So Shane Adams has a show on YouTube called The Dead Chaser Society. It's very raw, it's very uncut, it's very much uncensored, and so it's very much for people that don't mind adult language. But he likes to go on these rants, and I love these rants because he's basically not afraid to say what a lot of us chasers are trying to say or thinking at the time. So make sure you check that out, Dead Chaser Society. I believe it's on his show or his channel. Passion Twist. Is it?
Uh,
Okay.
I think so. Uh, Also, I'm gonna have to ask Shane. I just want to have a show where you could come on and just I'll give you like my little they give us like a little syllabus each for each class or whatever. I'll just have you look at it. I just want you to like rip on every single point and then personally assault me over a computer. That's it. Because also I feel like
Well,
people would enjoy that. I don't know.
well, the thing is Shane would probably do that only, but on the grounds that you're actually going to be on the show for once and actually have working technology and working internet. That's probably the only way we can do that. So,
Yeah, fair enough.
um, why don't we just do this? Why don't we get Shane on the show and we'll have a big list of chasers who call themselves the Great Chasers, and we'll say, "What do you think?" Or we'll throw the name out and we'll just have Shane just say whatever comes to his mind.
There we go. We got a show.
There we go. That's a full like hour or two of a good show. So, oh man. All right. Well, so there's two ideas for the show. I want people to really consider those and report back to me on that. Any other ideas? Definitely come up. I promised Skip I'd do this at some point. So, Skip, if you're watching, I'd really like for you to come on at least one time and kind of explain Storm Assist. A lot of people do know what Storm Assist is, but a lot of people don't. So let's get you on the show. Let's talk about it. Either you or anyone else. Maybe Kendra. I know Kendra's watching. Maybe Kendra wants to come on. Definitely talk about Storm Assist since y'all are kind of the spokespersons for that. So, but yeah, that's all I got to say. Of course, I don't have the banners up. I don't know why we didn't put the banners up today. I guess I should have, but
Meh.
yeah, me. All right. Twitter at TGT_show. Facebook at TGT show. You can find me at the txwxchaser.smugmug.com. Go ahead and whore yourself out there, James.
You can find me at on my Facebook page, just James Cassina, thunderingskies.blogspot.com, or just I'm on Stormtrack. I'll post there every now and again during the week. So feel free to shoot me a private message. I'll be in the Chaser chat sometimes. So yeah.
All right, man. So what days are you going out again? You're going out Wednesday, right?
As of right now, I'm looking at going out Wednesday. Should everything stay somewhat the same, definitely depends on how it's looking over the next 2 days and how Monday and Tuesday play out. Okay.
So you'll be out maybe Wednesday, possibly. I'll probably be out Monday. So, well, tomorrow. I plan to just kind of have a lazy evening. I'm just gonna go out to like Canadian, sit out there, and if it's not gonna do anything by dusk or by sunset, then probably grab some food in Canadian, come back home at a decent hour. Nothing stressful, nothing big, but if something happens, I'm there for it. Man, it's been a while since we've really chased, so I'm kind of glad I got out there Thursday. Even though my last chase was like November 22nd, so whatever. I'm waiting to see. I think someone had well, we'll talk. We'll list it out later. But someone else had a suggestion for the show. We'll probably put it on Stormtrack or Twitter, or whatever. So
yeah, just put it in the thread if you have an idea. We'll check it. So
yeah, or just message me or James if you don't want to like throw the word around. But just message me and James, and we'll definitely consider it. We'll deeply consider it. So we kind of ran out of topics. That's kind of why we really haven't done much. We had like 30 topics to begin the whole show, and then we just ran out. So
yep,
there it is. So
we are very unimaginative, if you can't tell.
Yeah, I know. I'm very unimaginative. If you can look at my blank wall back here.
Yeah, so. Really. I have a flag back here that you can't see right now. Does that count?
Well, I can't see because your camera doesn't work.
Hey.
Hey.
Yeah, you were correct. You were correct.
I'm not wrong. I'm not wrong. So
gonna get ripped on that for the next year and a half. everything I touch breaks.
Yeah. Okay. Well, all right. So we'll just go ahead and end the show there. I know we'll eventually get back on the wagon and try to get some shows going again. In terms of a constant thing, I still don't know about the situation. James, did I talk to you about co-hosting? No, James.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no. I don't think you did.
Oh, okay. Well, I was just gonna say, maybe we'll consider because I know you kind of have a really busy schedule, especially going to school, and we might try to look at someone else to fill in for co-host whenever you're not around.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. Especially
So,
considering that I have computer troubles every fucking week. So
yeah,
that
I'm hoping Adam. I was really hoping Adam Lucio would take that crown because Adam's really fun to have on the show. So,
yeah,
Adam,
definitely.
if you're watching, uh, get in here and be my co-host every now and then. So, and Skip too, but Skip's busy being dad, so it's kind of hard to get him for sure on him. But and also since we're just gonna wrap this up here, you know, we both have really busy lives and busy schedules, but also we're about to get into chase season, man. We're not gonna have a consistent show during the chase season, so one or two things is either going to happen. Either we're going to have to quickly find someone else that could kind of fill in our shoes in terms of doing a weekly show. We can definitely all collaborate with that person and tell them, hey, let's do the show about this. Especially if me and James are out on a big chase, because I know James. If there's a chase that's in relatively good distance on a Sunday, we're going to be on it.
Yeah.
So we can either do that, or we can just do the show during the week at some point. Just on a Wednesday or Thursday or whatever works out. So we'll figure it out eventually. You guys have some weight in it too, all you viewers, if you want to do it one way or the other. So just let us know and let us know how we're doing, how terrible we're doing, and make sure you tell us how much you hate us because we don't do a show every week.
Yep.
Hey, whatever, life happens. So this is not my life. This show's not my life. This is a supplement of my life. So I'm getting a lot of feedback. Everyone wants Adam to be the co-host. So Adam Lucio, you have no choice. You have to be my co-host now. James, you're fired. Get the hell out of here.
Oh, thank you.
Go
Okay.
away. So no, really, Adam. I'm sure. Well, Adam has my number. Text me about it, man, and we'll talk about it. But all right, man. Well, I guess we'll call it a night.
Yep.
I feel sorry for the one viewer that just jumped on because we're about to end the show. So, but all right, guys. Well, James, if you got anything to send everyone off.
Yep. Well, keep things are going to get better, guys. If you go chase this week, good luck. Hopefully everyone gets to see something. If you could chase, only one day, hope something happens for you. I posted about it earlier. If I see one more post ripping on people, either posting parameters or people who are posting parameters then ripping on people who are bitching about it, I will cut somebody. So please shut your stupid mouths. Shut your goddamn whore mouths about it. Everyone understands where everyone is. Stop circle jerking about it. And good luck out there, guys. Stay safe.
Yeah, and don't rip on the models because they're doing the best they can. Okay.
Yeah, God, they're just mathematical models, all right? They're doing the best.
They might have feelings too.
Yeah, they might. They're not programmed to have feelings. We don't know yet.
We don't know. All right, guys. Well, if that's all we got, we'll end the show here. Thank you all for watching. We'll be in touch with you guys, and you guys can keep up with what's going on next week. Like I said, we got 2 topics already there, so we'll just get another one going. We'll get some guests on the show, and we'll see you guys next week. Peace.
Adios.